I need to renew my passport. That's really where all of this starts. Not with anything strange, not with a feeling or a dream or some dark premonition, just a bureaucratic errand on a Tuesday afternoon in March. I'd been putting it off for about 6 months because, honestly, I hadn't traveled anywhere in almost 3 years. No reason to rush. But my sister was getting married in Portugal in September, and I figured I should stop procrastinating. I came home from work, dropped my bag by the door, made coffee, and sat down at the kitchen table. I pulled open the junk drawer where I keep important documents, birth certificate, old tax returns, the passport. It was right where I left it. Navy blue cover, slightly bent at the corner from being shoved in there carelessly. I opened it to check the expiration date. June 2027. Still valid. I almost closed it right there. I almost put it back and told myself I'd deal with photos and the application form another day. But something made me flip through the pages. Maybe just idle curiosity. I hadn't looked at this thing in years. The first few pages were blank. Then came the stamps I remembered. A faded blue rectangle from Heathrow, 2019. A Canadian entry stamp from that work conference in Toronto, same year. A circular red stamp from Lisbon, which was the last trip I took before everything shut down. I remembered each one. I could trace each stamp back to a specific flight, a specific reason, a specific version of myself standing in a customs line. Then I turned to the middle of the booklet, and one of the pages was missing. Not torn out violently, not ripped. It was gone the way a page is when it's been removed carefully, precisely a thin, clean edge along the spine where the paper had been, barely noticeable unless you were looking. The page numbers skipped. 17 to 19. Page 18 was gone. I stared at it for a long time. I turned the passport over, shook it a little, as if the page might fall out from between the others. Of course it didn't. I remember thinking it must have been damaged somehow. Maybe something in the drawer, or maybe it had always been like that and I'd never noticed. Passports are mass-produced. Manufacturing error. I'd heard of stranger things. I put it back in the drawer. I drank my coffee. I did not think about it again that night. The next day, I called the passport office during my lunch break, mostly to ask if a missing page would be a problem for renewal. The woman on the phone was polite but firm. She said a passport with a removed page is considered damaged. It would need to be reported. She asked me to come in and bring the document so it could be inspected. I said fine, I'd schedule something. But before I hung up, she said one more thing. She said, "And you'll want to check your travel records. If there was a stamp on that page, you'll need documentation of the trip for continuity." I told her there wouldn't have been a stamp. I haven't traveled since 2020. She paused, a short professional pause. Then she said, "Just check to be safe," and ended the call. I don't know why that pause bothered me. It was nothing. Customer service people pause all the time. But there was something about the way she said, "Just check." Not like a suggestion, more like a correction. Like she knew something I didn't. After work, I logged into the government's travel history portal. I'd never used it before, but it took only a few minutes to set up. You enter your passport number, your date of birth, answer a few security questions, and it generates a list of all border crossings linked to your document. 3 entries appeared. Heathrow, 2019. Toronto, 2019. Lisbon, 2020. Exactly what I expected. I started to close the tab. Then the page refreshed. I don't know if it was an auto-update or a glitch, but the page reloaded on its own, and now there were 4 entries. The 4th line read, Entry. Lofoten, Norway, October 14th, 2022. Port of Svolvær. Arrival stamp issued. I read it 3 times. I read it out loud. I read each word individually to make sure I wasn't combining lines or confusing the format. October 14th, 2022. I was not in Norway in October 2022. I have never been to Norway. I don't know anyone who lives in Norway. In October 2022, I was in the middle of a project at work that had me doing 12-hour days for 3 straight weeks. I barely left my apartment. I refreshed the page again. The 4th entry was still there. I took a screenshot. Then I took another one. Then I closed the laptop and walked into the kitchen and stood there with my hands on the counter for about 5 minutes without moving. Here is the thing about a moment like that. It's not frightening, not at first. It's disorienting. Your brain treats it the same way it treats a wrong answer on a quiz. There must be an error, and the error is probably yours. So you go back. You recheck. You look for a simple explanation. I called my bank that evening, told them I needed a transaction history for October 2022. The woman on the phone pulled it up and started reading through the charges. Grocery store, electric bill, subscription renewal, gas station, grocery store again. She went day by day through the entire month. Every charge was local. Every transaction placed me exactly where I remembered being. At home, at work, in my neighborhood. I thanked her. I felt better. Clearly a database error on the government portal. Some glitch that assigned someone else's travel record to my passport number. It happens. Systems are imperfect. I told myself I'd mention it at the passport office appointment and they'd sort it out. But I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was scared, because I was doing math in my head. October 14th, 2022 was a Friday. I know this because I went back and checked my calendar, and my calendar showed nothing for that day. No meetings, no reminders, no events. Every other weekday that month had something: a stand-up meeting, a deadline, a dentist appointment, a grocery delivery window. But Friday the 14th was completely empty. A blank square in a grid of otherwise meticulous scheduling. That doesn't mean anything. People have free days. I probably just didn't log anything. But it nagged at me the way a hangnail nags at you, small and pointless and impossible to ignore. Over the next few days, I started doing what I'd describe as casual research, though it didn't feel casual. I looked up Svolvær. It's a small town in the Lofoten Islands, way up in northern Norway above the Arctic Circle. Fishing village. A few thousand people. The kind of place that shows up in travel photography. Dramatic mountains dropping into cold blue water. Red wooden cabins on stilts. Narrow harbors full of boats. I'd never seen any of these images before, and yet, scrolling through them, I had the strangest sensation. Not recognition exactly. More like the feeling you get when someone describes a place you've been to in a dream, and for a moment the dream comes back. Not as a memory, but as a pressure behind your eyes. I closed the browser. I told myself I was being ridiculous. 2 days later, I went to the passport office. I brought my passport, my screenshot of the travel history, and a printout of my bank statement for October 2022. The man at the desk was maybe 50, grey around the temples, very calm. He took the passport, opened it, counted the pages. He confirmed that page 18 was missing. He noted the clean edge, the precision of the removal. He said this wasn't typical of manufacturing errors. I showed him the screenshot, the Norway entry. I explained that I'd never been to Norway, and that my bank records proved I was in the country during the dates listed. He looked at the screenshot for a while. Then he typed my passport number into his own system. He turned the monitor so I could see it. 4 entries: Heathrow, Toronto, Lisbon, Svolvær. It's in our system too, he said. I asked if it could be a clerical error. He said it was possible but unlikely. Entry records are generated at the point of crossing. They're tied to the biometric chip in the passport, not just the number, he said. And I remember this very clearly. The chip in your passport was scanned at the port in Svolvær on that date. That's not something a data entry error can do. I didn't say anything for a while. He offered to escalate the case to the investigations unit. I said yes. He gave me a reference number and told me someone would be in touch. On the drive home, I called my mother. Not about the passport. Just to talk. But midway through the conversation, I asked her casually what I was doing in October 2022. She said she didn't remember specifically. I asked if I had mentioned any trips. She said no. Then she said, "Actually, wait. You did go quiet for a few days that month. I remember because I texted you on a Thursday and you didn't respond until Sunday. I thought you were just busy with work." I asked her what Thursday was. She didn't remember the exact date. When I got home, I checked my text messages with my mother. I scrolled back to October 2022. Her messages were there. A series of casual check-ins, a photo of the dog, a question about a recipe. The last message she sent before the gap was on October 13th. My next reply was on October 16th. 3 days of silence. October 13th to 16th. The Norway entry was logged on October 14th. I sat on the edge of my bed and pressed my palms into my eyes. I tried to remember those days. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. What did I eat? What did I watch? What did I wear? And for the first time in this whole process, I felt something crack, because I couldn't remember, not just vaguely. I couldn't remember anything at all. Those 3 days were a blank. Not black, not foggy, just absent. Like a book with 3 pages stuck together that you'd been reading past your entire life without noticing. I want to be clear. I am not a person who loses time. I don't drink excessively. I don't take medication that causes blackouts. I have never, at any point in my life, woken up somewhere without knowing how I got there. My memory is average but functional. I remember October 2022 broadly. The long work hours, the specific project, the feeling of being exhausted and homebound. But within that broad memory, those 3 days are simply not there. I thought about going to a doctor. I didn't go to a doctor. Instead, I did something I'm not sure I can fully justify. I booked a flight to Svolvær. I know how that sounds, but the logic at the time felt clean and necessary. If the system said I'd been there, if my passport's biometric chip confirmed it, if a page had been physically removed from my passport, then something had happened. And I wanted to see the place. I wanted to stand in it and feel whether anything came back. The flight was London to Oslo, then Oslo to Bodo, then a short connection to Svolvær. I landed on a grey Tuesday afternoon. The airport was small, barely more than a terminal and a parking lot. The air was cold and tasted like salt. I had booked a guest house in the centre of town. The owner, a woman named Astrid, showed me to my room on the 2nd floor, a small, clean window facing the harbour. As she handed me the key, she looked at me for a moment longer, then felt normal and said, "Welcome back." I asked her what she meant. She smiled and said, "You look like someone who has been here before." I told her I hadn't. She nodded, still smiling, and left. I walked around the town that afternoon. It was mostly quiet. Off-season, not many tourists. The harbour, the boats, the mountains rising steeply on every side. I photographed things. I read plaques on buildings. I went into a small maritime museum and looked at old fishing equipment behind glass. None of it triggered anything. I felt like exactly what I was, a stranger in a foreign town. By evening, I was almost relieved. The trip was a dead end. I'd go home, follow up with the investigation unit, and eventually it would be resolved as some systemic error. Then I went to dinner. The restaurant was a small place near the waterfront. I sat at a table by the window and ordered fish soup because it was the first item on the menu, and I didn't want to think about it. The waiter brought bread and water. The room was mostly empty. A couple in the corner, an older man at the bar. Quiet. Unremarkable. When the soup arrived, the waiter set it down and said, "Same as last time." I looked up at him. He was young, maybe mid-20s, dark hair, completely neutral expression. I asked him what he'd said. He repeated it. "Same as last time. You ordered the same thing." I told him I'd never been to this restaurant. He shrugged. He said, "Maybe I'm thinking of someone else." And he walked away. But the way he said it, not confused, not uncertain, matter of fact, the way you'd confirm a regular's order. I sat there with a spoon in my hand and felt the room tilt slightly, not physically, but in some internal way, like the center of gravity in my understanding of things had shifted by half a degree. After dinner, I went back to the guest house and opened my laptop. I searched my email for any mention of Svolvær, of Norway, of Lofoten. Nothing. I searched my photo library for October 2022. Nothing between October 11th and October 17th. 6 days of no photos, which was unusual for me. I photographed my food, my walks, random things. It's compulsive. But during that window, nothing. I searched my Google Maps timeline, and this is where things changed. Google Maps timeline is a feature that logs your location passively if you have it enabled. I'd had it on for years. I scrolled to October 2022. On October 13th, it showed me at home, then at the grocery store, then at home again. On October 14th, 15th, and 16th, the timeline was empty. No location data at all. Not at home, not location unavailable. Just nothing. As if my phone had ceased to exist for 3 days, or as if I had gone somewhere my phone could not follow. On October 17th, the timeline resumed. Home, work, normal. I lay in the guest house bed that night and listened to the wind coming off the fjord. I did not sleep. I was not afraid, not in the traditional sense. I was something else. I was becoming uncertain of myself. There's a difference. Fear is about what might happen to you. This was about what might have already happened and been removed from my own record of it. The next morning I went to the harbour, specifically to the Port Authority office. I told the man at the desk that I was trying to verify an arrival record from 2022. He asked for my passport. I gave it to him. He typed for a while, frowned, typed more. Then he printed a single sheet of paper and slid it across the counter. It was a passenger manifest from a coastal ferry. The Hurtigruten route, Bodo to Svolvær, dated October 14, 2022. My name was on it. Seat 14A, boarding time 11:40. My passport number was listed next to my name. I stared at the paper. The man asked if everything was all right. I took the paper and left. I walked along the harbour wall for a long time, holding that printout, reading it over and over. My name, my passport number. A seat on a ferry I don't remember boarding to a place I don't remember visiting. And the page of my passport that would have held the arrival stamp. Gone. Removed. As if someone wanted to erase the physical proof while the digital proof remained buried in systems I'd never think to check. And this thought came later, cold and slow, as if I had removed the page myself. In the afternoon, I returned to the Guesthouse and asked Astrid if she had records from October 2022. Guest logs. Anything. She looked uncertain but agreed to check. She disappeared into a back office and came out 10 minutes later with a leather-bound logbook. She opened it in October and turned pages until she reached the 14th. It was my name, written in my handwriting. I know my own handwriting. I know the way I write my capital letters, the slight backward lean, the way I connect certain letters and leave others isolated. That was my hand, my pen, my name in a logbook in a guest house in a town I have never consciously been to. Astrid watched me as I looked at it. She didn't say anything for a moment. Then she said, "You stayed 2 nights, checked out on the 16th. You were very quiet. You went for walks. You didn't talk much." She paused. "You seemed like someone who was looking for something." I asked her what I looked like. She seemed confused by the question. I clarified. My appearance, my behavior, anything she remembered. She said I looked tired. I was wearing a dark coat. I carried a small bag, not much luggage. She said I asked about a hiking trail, a specific one, leading up to a viewpoint above the town called Svolvær. She remembered because she'd recommended it. I asked if she remembered anything else. She thought about it. Then she said, "You received a phone call on the second night. I remember because you took it in the hallway and you spoke very quietly. When you came back to the common room, you looked different. Pale. You checked out the next morning, earlier than planned." I asked if she knew who called. She didn't. That evening, I hiked to Svolvær. It's a steep trail, about an hour up, and it ends at a narrow rock formation overlooking the town and the sea. The view was enormous. Grey water stretching to the horizon, mountains on every side, the town below like a cluster of coloured dots. The wind was strong enough that I had to brace myself. I stood there and waited. For a memory. For a flash. For anything. I closed my eyes and tried to feel whether my body knew this place, whether my feet recognized the rock beneath them, whether some part of me that exists below conscious memory could confirm that I had stood here before. And something happened. Not a memory. A feeling. A deep, gut-level sensation that I can only describe as familiarity without content, like hearing a song you recognize but can't name. I knew this view, not the specific details, not the exact angle of the mountains or the position of the boats below, but the experience of standing here, the wind, the scale of it. It was in me somewhere, lodged below language. I opened my eyes and looked down. Near my feet, tucked against the base of a rock, was a small cairn. A stack of stones, maybe 8 or 9, carefully balanced. It looked old but not ancient, weathered by maybe a few years. And at the base of the cairn, half buried in gravel, was a piece of folded paper, sealed in a small plastic sleeve to protect it from the elements. I picked it up. I unfolded it. It was a note, written in my handwriting. 6 words. "You will come back for this." I put the note in my pocket. I walked back down the trail. I did not run. I did not cry. I moved through the world the way you move through the last few minutes of a dream you know is ending, with a strange, suspended calm. Back at the Guesthouse, I tried to reconstruct any logical scenario, dissociative episode, fugue state, some kind of break I didn't know I'd had, followed by suppressed memory. It was possible. These things happen to people. Stress, overwork, some underlying neurological event. I could have traveled here, spent 2 days, left, and returned home with no memory of it. The missing passport page could have been me, trying to erase evidence. The note could have been me, knowing somehow that I would eventually trace my steps back. This explanation should have been comforting. It was medical, it was solvable. But it didn't account for everything. That night, I checked my phone records. Not the call log. Those only go back 2 years. But my carrier provides an archive if you request it. I'd put in a request earlier that week. The file had arrived in my email while I was on the mountain. I opened it, scrolled to October 2022. On October 15th at 9:47 p.m., the night Astrid remembered the phone call. There was an incoming call. Duration, 11 minutes. The number was my own. I had received a call from my own phone number. I checked 3 times. The incoming number and my number were identical, digit for digit. An 11-minute call from myself to myself. I closed the laptop. I walked to the window and looked out at the harbor. The water was black, and the reflections of the dock lights broke and reformed on its surface like something trying to hold a shape. I left Svolvær the next morning. On the flight home, I sat in my seat and held the note in my lap, reading those 6 words over and over. You will come back for this. And I realized the sentence was ambiguous. I had been reading it as a prediction. You will come back for this object, this note. But it could also be read differently. You will come back for this, meaning the experience, the trip, meaning I would return to Svolvær not to retrieve something, but to repeat something, to do again whatever I had done. And that scared me more than anything. Not the missing page, not the ferry manifest, not the phone call from my own number. The idea that I am a person who does things I don't know about. That there is a version of me that moves through the world with purpose and intention, making plans, writing notes, removing evidence, and then returns me to my life with no memory of having left. When I got home, I put the passport back in the drawer. I pinned the note to my corkboard next to my desk. I went back to work. I told no one. 3 weeks passed. The investigation unit called. The woman on the phone said they'd reviewed my case and confirmed that the Svolvær entry was legitimate. Biometric match, ferry manifest, port authority records. She said they couldn't explain the missing page, but that it wasn't grounds for further action unless I wanted to file a police report. She asked if I remembered the trip. I said no. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Mr. Harmon, one more thing. During our review, we found a 5th entry in your travel records. It wasn't visible on the public portal because it's flagged with a processing delay. It appears to be a return booking, Svolvær to Bodo, then Bodo to Oslo, then Oslo to London, dated October 16th, 2022. I said that made sense. That was presumably how I got home. No, she said. This is a future booking. It was made 3 days ago. Someone used your passport number to reserve a return journey from Svolvær. The departure date is June 8th of this year. I felt something drain out of me. Not color, not warmth. Something more structural, like a supporting wall being quietly removed. I asked who made the booking. She said the reservation was made online, through a Norwegian travel portal, using my passport number and an email address she read out to me. It was my email address. I told her I didn't make that booking. She said she understood. She said the investigation would remain open. She wished me good luck, and she hung up. That was 4 weeks ago. It is now April. June 8th is 48 days away. I have not booked a trip to Norway. I have checked my email. There is no confirmation, no receipt, no record of the booking from my end. But when I log into the Norwegian travel portal and enter my passport number, the reservation is there. Svolvær to Bodo, June 8th, seat 14A. The same seat. I changed my email password. I enabled 2-factor authentication. I checked my login history. No unrecognized devices, no unusual access. According to every security system available to me, nobody has logged into my accounts. which means either someone has access to systems I can't see, or I made the booking and don't remember it. I have started setting alarms on my phone at random intervals throughout the night. 2 a.m., 3:15, 4:40. Each time, I wake up and confirm that I am in my bed in my apartment in London. So far, I have been there every time. But last Tuesday, when the 3:15 alarm went off, I noticed something. My shoes, the ones I leave by the front door, were on the wrong side. I always leave them on the left. They were on the right, and the soles were damp. It had not rained. I am recording this now because I want a record that exists outside my own memory. I don't trust my memory anymore. I don't trust the blankness in it, or the way it seals over gaps so smoothly that I can't feel the seams. I look at the note on my corkboard every morning. You will come back for this. And each day the words seem less like a message from the past and more like an instruction I haven't followed yet. The passport is still in the drawer. I thought about destroying it. I thought about cutting it up and throwing it away and applying for a new one, and never thinking about Svolvær again. But yesterday, I opened the drawer to do exactly that, and the passport was already open. Open to the space where page 18 should be. And tucked into the spine, pressed flat like a bookmark, was a second note. Same handwriting, same paper. 7 words this time. The page is where you left it. I have never been to the attic of my building. The landlord says it's been locked for years, but this morning I asked him about it, and he looked at me strangely, and he said, "You asked me the same question in October, 2 years ago. I gave you the key then too." He's looking for the key now. I'm sitting in my apartment, waiting. June 8th is 47 days away. Seat 14A is booked, and somewhere above me, in a room I have apparently already visited, there is a page from my passport that describes a trip I cannot remember taking to a place that already feels like it's pulling me back. I don't know who I am on the days I can't account for. I don't know what I want when I'm not here to watch myself wanting it. All I know is that the handwriting is mine, and the plans are made. And whatever I'm becoming has been patient enough to wait 2 years for me to catch up. The landlord just knocked. He found the key. I'm going upstairs.